Well, folks, we got a big flight coming up. It's going to be the longest flight I've ever made in this aircraft. And, you know, in terms of flight distance, it's not all that great. We're talking 300 miles. You know, when you look at people who fly aircraft over the Atlantic Ocean on their way to Oshkosh, etc., a 300-mile flight pales in comparison. However, there is a difference. Those guys who fly long distance to Oshkosh are in commercially manufactured, commercially built, large design teams. Everything is professionally built, professionally designed. This is 100% amateur, and that amateur is me. I've just finished my annual inspection. I've had it up for 3 flights. This airplane has a liquid-cooled Mazda 13B as a power plant in it. I'm going to take the cowlings off. And what I want to do is have one more look at the coolant adjustments. So what we have here is an expansion tank. It holds a little over a quart or a liter of 50-50 glycol water, but I only fill it up to about here. I keep 2.5 inches in this thing, and the reason is because as the engine heats up, glycol expands and the pressure in here builds. And this is the main pressure relief point for the system, is this radiator cap. I have a secondary fill point here, which is the highest point in the coolant system in the block. So what I want to do is remove this cap, measure the depth of the coolant in here, put this cap back on, then remove this and fill it up and make sure that I've got this full and this set to 2.5 inches. And I've already flown it 3 times, so it's had 3 heat cycles up to operating temperature and back down to near zero or near zero. And this is one last final sanity check before I make that flight. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, you know, yes, I'm always a little nervous flying. If you're not a little bit nervous, you're probably a little bit nuts. You're talking about a 300-mile flight here, but in perspective, almost, and I've flown a lot further than that before. I've been to Oshkosh and back 3 or 4 times, which is 800 miles one way, so that's a 1,600-mile flight. It's just the fact that it's the longest flight that this plane will have ever made. So it's going to be, for me, it's exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking. I can hardly wait for it to be over and say that, yep, I did it, and I now have, you know, the thing with a home-built aircraft, well, especially, I shouldn't say a home-built aircraft. Home-built aircrafts are pretty solid. It's the alterations and the modifications that make home-builts a bit iffy. And a lot of the alterations are in the engine and the person who's maintaining the engine, etc., etc. Even if you go with a commercially made engine like a Lycoming or Continental, a lot of guys are rebuilding them themselves from scratch, and they're doing this, they're doing that, they're putting on different magnetos, and you know, they're experimenting with it a little bit. But that's a far cry from a 1988 Mazda 13B liquid-cooled engine in an airplane that I had torn apart, I've rebuilt. It took me years. If you watch some of my videos, it's taken me years to get the cooling system in this engine, the water system and the oil system balanced out. And it's just a lot of trial and error. But I think I finally got that worked out. And the main thing was to give myself more radiator, more water jacket radiator and a little less concentration on the oil. I used to have 2 oil coolers here up front. I've turned one into a water cooler, so it assists the main radiator mounted underneath the engine. Anyway, it's I got a total of 220 hours on this thing, and I had an accident back in 2012, and I had about 70 hours on it at the time. So from 70 up to 220. So I've got 150 hours on this engine installation, the rebuild that I did 10 years ago. Well, finished 7 or 8 years ago. I believe it is finally ready for prime time, and I'm looking forward to proving it. So let's get at checking out this coolant balance, and we'll go from there. So first, we'll take a look at the coolant system pressure gauge. It says boost, but what it is it shows the pressure that's in the coolant system. So there's 5 psi in there. I want to bleed it off. So I start here. There's a sifter valve. If there's any air trapped in the block, I can bleed it out here. So there's the coolant coming. See, we were at 5 pounds. That hasn't changed much. Still at 5 pounds. And now I will bleed the rest of the coolant, the rest of the pressure out using the expansion tank. You can hear it gurgling. Now what I hope for at a time like this is that because this expansion tank is connected to this high port, it's also connected to multiple points on the block. This is a high port on the point on the block it's connected, and it also connects to the radiator in the front. What I don't want when you hear that gurgling is any significant amounts of coolant transferring from the block into here. I want this level maintained, so I got to check it. So what I want, 2.5 inches in here. So 1, 2.5. It's already very, very well balanced. Exactly where I want it to be. So perhaps the work that I already did to get it to this stage was enough. But now I know it for sure, and that just makes me feel a whole lot more comfortable. However, I will be removing this, and we will do a final fill up to get that thing topped right up. Now I don't expect it to take a lot of fluid. It might take a cup or half a cup, something like that. So, see how much glycol we can get in here. This is 50-50 glycol and water. Okay, she's full to the top. Double check this one more time. Still 2.5 inches. That's as good as it gets. Put the cap on it. Put the lock on it. That is good to go. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Hope to be making that flight on the weekend, Saturday, June 17th. We'll see you then.